Hello, everyone. I'm so glad you're here in the show. So, I'm Franz Sidney, and this is Create with Franz. Today, we have a very special guest all the way from the Middle East of the US. Are you North Carolina woman?
North Carolina.
North Carolina, yes, Charlene Ridley for you guys. That's our leadership strategist and coach from North Carolina. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm really glad to be here, especially because there are so many people right now that are either exhausted at work or are really feeling stressed out about finding
Mm.
employment. And I'm so looking forward to this conversation because this is exactly the work that I do and why I even created Heart Goals. So I'm excited to be here.
Me too. And let me just frame it for you guys listening, thinking, is this for me? Yeah, well, this is for you if you think we are living in uncertain times. If you think that you're not really sure what it takes today to get hired, whatever age you're 20, you're 40, maybe you're divorced, maybe you raise your kids, you can't get a job, or maybe you are there and you're silently burning out because you're doing the role of five people and the company is being cutting off and you're there on your own. And I'm very sorry to hear from lots of my friends in the business forums. They send 50, 60, 80 resumes. They got skills, masters, PhDs. They can't get a job. What's going on? So they're looking down for lower paid job, entry level job, just to put something on the table to eat. And you know what? AI is taking away these jobs, or the entry level are gone. So there is a lot of kind of confusion, what's going on. And some people think this is a disaster, but I don't think it's a disaster. I think it's a time to look for the expert and say, how can I pivot myself? How can I get this? Think about the industrial revolution. You know, we went from a farm and the field to the factories, to machine, to steam, to electricity. And lots of jobs were wiped out, but a lot of new jobs were created. So what can we do? This is why I've been looking for a whole month, all these experts in this field to say, okay, what can we do? Especially new people coming in, people who can move up the ladder, and especially women who maybe are 40, they raise their kids and are like, yeah, I got my master's, I can go back to do such and such job. And then they have no reply from the company. So like, maybe I'm not as good as I thought. It is terrifying. And I know that Charlene is very aware of this fact. We tend to feel like we are in a survival mode. We might want to just pay the bills. And so there is actually a framework that we can use to get out of the shell of desperation and be needy and accepting lower positions. There is something you call the heart framework. So let's introduce the topic. What do you see from your side? Because you see all these people, right? You're working with them. What is the situation from your side as an expert?
What I see two major problems in today's workforce. And that problem, they're two problems, but they're two different sides of the same coin. So in the workplace, we have people like you mentioned that are working, and as we're right-sizing teams and introducing new technology like AI, it is causing employers and leadership to be more demanding in their requirements and to right-size teams. I'll say right size with air quotes, because there's an ideology that because you have these tools, you can do more work. So you might be doing the work of two or three people, and that leads to burnout, misalignment, frustration, exhaustion, all of those things. That's internally within the organization. On the other side in the workforce, we see people that you've mentioned that are very educated, very qualified, credentialed, that are looking for work and they're submitting, to your point. I have friends, I've even had clients that 20, 40, 60, 80 resumes, and they're feeling invisible. They're not even hearing anything back from the organization, and they're feeling frustration and also a bit of panic and desperation and I need to survive, right? So the reason that I say it's the same sides of the coin because it's the system that is broken, the workforce system, but it's also how we as individuals approach agency and our right to choose and what it is that we want to have in our lives.
Is there a hope then to find this solution? I have a CV, right? I read it and it looks amazing. And I send it and it's not hitting the taste buds of this HR person. So do I start with a CV? Do I start with doing an appraisal of my life? I mean, it's just
Good
so
question.
confusing.
Good question. And I like that you stopped and thought about that. And like, you're like, oh my gosh, there's so much information. This is at least how I'm interpreting your response. There's so much information. Where do I start? I think that's such a good question. So I will say this, I'll start first with the answer if you're internal, and then I'll go to the external, right? Because we want to make sure that both sides are getting value. So let's first say this. There's no shame in survival mode, right? We all have bills to pay. And I don't want anyone that's watching this that's saying, hey, I've been staying in this difficult role where I'm burnt out because I need to pay my bills. And I don't want anyone else that's saying, hey, I've been considering lower positioned opportunities because I need to pay my bills. I don't want either of them to feel ashamed because when you're in shame, it's going to be a very limiting perspective, right? And it's not going to allow you to utilize the opportunities and the tools that are ahead of you. So I first want to say that. And heart goals really frames how to make decisions during uncertain and unstable times without losing your identity, your health, or your future. So the first decision is using the A in heart is alignment, right? And sometimes people think alignment is a luxury that I don't get to have. It is not. Alignment is actually risk management. It's how you're managing your decisions so that it doesn't cost you something with your health or your future. And if you're in a role right now that you're saying, okay, I'm burnt out in this role, you get to ask yourself, okay, with the alignment, is there something in this role, a skill, a leadership, a task that is aligned with my future growth and what it is that I want to continue to develop in my career? And how do I focus my time in the meantime on really developing that role, that strength, that skill, so that I am rightfully positioning myself for something else and not making moves out of panic and desperation? Outside of the internal roles in the job market, it's very easy for us to say, okay, especially if you're in your 40s or older. I'm in my 40s. I have friends that are mid 40s, educated, looking for jobs, and it's not the same job market. And so it's very easy to say, oh, well, they're looking for younger people that they can pay less. It's an algorithm that is making me not get seen, right? Or we could even say it's ageism, but all of those things take away our agency, and everything comes back to what are we doing to be able to position ourselves to be found in what seems like a different job market. So if you're outside of the workforce right now, so you're not working, the first thing you need to do is not look at your CV or your resume, but it's to sit down and make a list of all of the ways that you can add value to an organization, right? And I want you to think about that and get really laser focused on picking like your top three. Because what is true in today's job market is that you have to position yourself as a thought leader, as a contributor, as a creator. You have to set yourself apart instead of just using traditional job boards like LinkedIn to just submit resumes. But you cannot set yourself apart if you don't know with certainty and clarity the value that you bring. So, step one is sitting down, looking at your skills, and picking your top three ways that you contribute and add value to an organization.
That's a very good point because I think sometimes we do not see our potential. And I'm gonna have Giancarlo talking about that on I'm recording on Friday. And he's quite a personality in this, and it's this grit, the old-fashioned school grit there. And many times we do not see how we can advance. He will be talking about that, how lots of people think, oh, just a data clerk and just a manager. Actually, they can be a leader, but they don't see themselves. And I think to some extent, this applies, for example, to a person who's been out of work, looking looking after a chronically ill member of a family, or raising kids, or you've been divorced, and so you were just doing any possible job until the kids were raised because you had to manage too many things. And so a lot of people and a lot of women think oh, I didn't work for 20 years, so I don't have any skills. But actually, they never stopped working. They just changed their job title because now they're
Mhm.
becoming driver, chefs, organizer, party organizer, um, beauticians, right? Sport coaches. And how about conflict resolution, multitasking, accountancy, budgeting? They done a lot of stuff, but we don't tend to see what we've done. And yet we raise
Mhm.
these amazing kids that are resilient. How do we do that? Isn't that so similar to what you do in a team when you infuse motivation, help them, give them structure, boundaries, give them a vision? We do so much and we don't recognize it. So, what would be a way that we can um, really see the effect that we had in our society? What are these achievements? What if it's not something that we can provide a letter for? Where do we find that? Because that's also a bit of a stumbling point for me, thinking, well, I actually forgot most of the stuff. I don't-
Well, I think that's a good question. And people do actually forget. And it's not just people that have been out of the workforce for a while. I can definitely understand and relate. At one point in my life, I was a stay-at-home mom. And when I re-entered the workforce, I had those and shared those same feelings. But I've noticed that it's not just people that have been out of the workforce, but it's people that are in the workforce that aren't able to translate their value, right? People are focusing on task and the task that they did in a role and not really the value that they created. So whenever I think of value, I think of ways that you make money, save money, or that you create convenience, right? Because those are the things that are driving businesses forward. So when you are looking at your skills, really thinking about it, like instead of being very general and saying, okay, I answer and direct phone calls, right? That's very general. But are you on a highly specialized team, right? Are you dealing with people that have high net worth? There are teams that are specifically for people that have high net worth, which means your client base is more curated. It's more there's many details that you have to consider, right? When working with that or group, there's certain white glove level of service that you're going to have to give them, all of those things. And then how are you saving them money or making their interaction with the organization more convenient? So it's really thinking about how you make, save, or make things more convenient, and then being able to talk about them. Specifically, I know that I mentioned earlier on LinkedIn. LinkedIn, I've been on LinkedIn for I think 20 years now. And traditionally, and many users are still using it as a traditional job board. So they're like, okay, I'm looking for a role. Let me go and find a role and submit my resume. And then the frustration is I don't hear anything. But you actually need to position yourself. So on LinkedIn, it has all of the social media components of any other social media site, Facebook, things like that, where you have an opportunity to become a creator or influencer. Now, when I say that, we're not thinking about it like, oh, look at my beautiful house, like that sort of influencer, right? But you're thinking about it from how do you contribute to organizations? So if you are in fundraising for a nonprofit, start writing articles and posts on LinkedIn's about best practices for fundraising within nonprofit organizations. If you are going back to that example that I used of someone that is answering and directing calls on high net worth teams, start talking about what is it like to deliver that white glove service. Start talking about call escalations and how to manage those things. Start talking about how to interact with people who have busy and demanding schedules. So start talking about the work that you do because you're positioning yourself, one, as someone who does not have to stay stuck in the traditional confines of something, but is an out of the box thinker and contributor, right? And you're positioning yourself with your thought leadership. So instead of having someone just rely on your resume to say that you're a candidate, they're going to be able to see how you think, how you contribute, what value you bring, and they automatically know more about you than they would for just a piece of paper or a digital file. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. And I think that can be also applied when you are in a job and you're really dying to go up and you seem
Yep.
to be unable to do it and you're burning out because you're doing so much. So, what is your advice when you're already there and you're kind of like, I need more money and I need more responsibility, and the boss doesn't see this? So, you would be outlining again what you have achieved, the problems you have solved.
Yes. So if you're currently in a role, I think again, and I know that we didn't stop to define heart, but heart is H holistic, E energizing, A aligned, R realistic in terms of capacity and resources, and T task driven. So it breaks it down into small tasks so that you're going forward building momentum. So going back to heart, you would sit in your role and you would do an alignment audit, right? Where do I want to be? Where am I currently? In what ways is my current role fulfilling the things that I want to do within my career? And in what ways, in what places are there gaps? Right. And then from there, you're going to identify within that audit. If I identify that there are gaps, then I get to ask myself some questions. Do those gaps exist within the organization and function of the work that I'm doing right now? Because if they do, I could simply go to my leader and say, hey, here's a direction that I'm really interested in going in my career. And I'd like to see if you can give me some stretch assignments or allow me to partner with some other teams, right? To be able to get experience and grow in that area, right? Or if you see that it's not in that current role that you're at, one simple shift that you can do is think about what other ways can I introduce this work and this skill to my life? Can I join a nonprofit board and contribute in that way? Right? Can I get active in the community and maybe volunteer my time as a mentor or a coach or something? Do I want to start a consultation agency outside of the workforce where I'm actually able to contribute more in that way? There are so many possibilities. And once we are aligned and we see where we're at, we have the opportunity to take advantage of the opportunities that are in front of us.
Hmm, that's a really good framework. So you're dividing all into chunks. This is where I am. I mean, grow model, right? In coaching,
Yeah.
this is the problem. And by this is, I want to go from A to B. What do I need to go from A to B? And chuck it down and say, if by the end of the year I want to have a raise, or I want to have more responsibility, or I want to develop a skill, pace back from we are in January, February now, going back, what do I need to have so that in December I have this? What has to happen by June? What has to happen by March? What are the steps that I have to take now in February, March, and April to get there in December? So chunking down is something that a lot of people forget. And I hear a lot of people, even here in this house, young people, who see the future as this bleak, unsurmountable task where AI is wiping all the jobs. And whatever degree they will have, they will never get anywhere because AI will take that job. And so with this catastrophic thinking, and I see that in 30-year-olds, 40-year-olds, 50-year-olds. Well, instead, if you start chunking it down, it could be the AI can help you to go in
Mhm.
some direction to get better because it can do some things faster. Let's say disclaimer, it makes a lot of mistakes. So we're not near perfection, but it
Yeah.
could be a way to save us because sometimes we don't have a particular skill, but AI can help us there so we can be a better team. And I think now a lot of companies will require people to know what AI is. So I would say my own suggestion, not from this world, maybe getting back to understanding technology and where we are now. Some of us are stuck in the 80s. There is more than emails, and AI can do a lot more stuff and help us to organize things, put notes together. Even, I tried that, put in your own curriculum and see where are my strengths here. And he will it because it's a bunch of circuits. It will highlight it. So we have a gap here. You have to tell him, but you have to be very down to earth, very don't be overly supportive because otherwise Gemini especially is so friendly. You think you're amazing. But be realistic and think about your specific issue. Would that be a good idea, in your opinion, Charlene, to say, okay, I want to look at my CV, but I can see I'm not quite there. What is missing? And then ask your friends, ask your boss, ask AI, ask Google, ask in forums until you get that, and then say, how do I do that?
I think that I think that yes, it can be helpful, but I would suggest using friends and AI and your former colleagues and employers to get clear on what your skills are if you're not readily clear on that, right? Because one of the things that you need to know is how do you deliver value? And if you don't know that, it's very hard to uncover gaps. So I
Yes,
think you start with knowing who you are and how you create value, and then deciding where you want to go, because then you can ask AI or your employers, how do I get there? What's the gap?
yeah,
How do I navigate that? But I think everything starts with knowing who you are and how you add value in the world. And I want to say this is so important. I've mentioned agency before, and I know I've been thinking about it. Not everyone maybe understands, like, what is agency, right? When I think of agency, I'm thinking of personal responsibility. And sometimes that can sound really harsh because we have all these conversations. AI is taking jobs. This is happening, the algorithms. But here's the reality. Whatever you believe is true for you, right? And if you are going to limit yourself to a position where I'm not going to be able to succeed because of AI or because of the algorithm or applicant tracking systems and all of these things, then you're not going to see possibility. If you say all of these things exist and I am still valuable and purposeful and intentional and can create in this world, you're going to see opportunities. And you're going to start to recognize those opportunities and be able to position yourself to take advantage of those opportunities.
yes. So your energy will always go where your focus is, right? So if we're focusing
Exactly.
on all the black things that happening, that's what's going to happen. That's all we can see. But if we're focusing on what can we do, what do I have, then the reticular activating system will start looking for signs of what you can do about this, which is
Correct.
why sometimes when we are thinking of nothing, but then suddenly, oh yeah, I have to look at this. Oh yeah, I was looking for that. Why? Because we have this intention. And sometimes people hate to hear all this coaching jargon, but being intentional, isn't that quite important?
It
Intention.
is very important. It's very important because it's almost like without having intention, it's like getting in the car to go somewhere without GPS or a destination,
Yeah.
right? It's
Yeah.
just like going out for a drive, a Sunday drive.
Mhm.
But the thing about it is most of the time, if you're just taking a drive, you're not going anywhere. You're enjoying the activity of driving. But we can't live our lives like that. If we're going somewhere, we have to be intentional to have a direction, to have a plan to get there. And these tools that we've mentioned, AI, LinkedIn, they're all tools that support you in the journey, but it depends on how you think about them.
Yeah. And that's why. So we have a trap with a burnout. We could be invisible. We could use a framework. It's all our choice what we're going to do. And I know that you also talk about having faith. So as we move to the last tips, how did it help you to have this? You say you rooted your identity in Jesus Christ. And this gave you the resilience to thrive even if the current market is quite unstable, but you're still going. So you talked about prayer a little bit. So how does that help you?
Well, it helps me particularly because I think that we as people, or let's say me in the past, I've put my identity in my work plenty of times. And when the workforce changed or things changed, it made me lose confidence. It made me second guess my purpose in this world and how I was able to contribute. But when I really started to dig in with my faith and understand that my identity is in Christ, then everything that I do is just an assignment that I have. The work that I do in this world is an assignment. It's not my identity. And that makes it easier for me to navigate the workforce because I am not taking my value from whether or not I get a call for an opportunity or whether or not, I'm in this corporate position making lots of money. That used to be my goal. And I can still have those as goals, but I'm not rooted in that. So I root in Jesus Christ. I pray about what I'm doing, and I believe that all of the work that we're doing here is an assignment, and it's actually
Mm.
bigger than all of the things that we're thinking about, just more money, bigger title, larger role. It's about people and who we're here to serve.
Right, that's a great attitude and great mindset. Thank you for that, Charlene. And before we go, do you have any small little tips so we can get started today to get this job improvement or career advancement or actually to look for a job to start with? Any more tips?
I think the biggest tip that I can tell you is that you're valuable and you can create value for an employer right now and to position yourself to be found in that way. Yes, continue to apply for jobs, but position yourself by adding value and contributing to conversations um, in social media environments. And don't shy away from that. It doesn't have to be perfect. You just need to get started.
Oh, I love that. Doesn't have to be perfect. It just once you do the first step, everything
Yes.
just comes. It's like a
Mhm.
tunnel, and we can see the light in front of in the end of the tunnel, see the Italian in me. But if we don't step in, it looks like so dark. But after you're in, you start seeing the end. Isn't that amazing? And
It's
that's
so true. It's
a good
so true.
metaphor, right?
Yes, absolutely. And I think the future of work is changing and the way that we are even going to obtain employment is going to change. So I think we either choose to change with it or we stay with outdated practices and experience the frustration of a changing system.
Yeah. The system will keep changing. It's been
Mhm.
changing so much. When I was younger, there was no internet. We had typewriters, woohoo, tapes and video cassettes. And look what happened. Everything is gone, but we still have music. We still have devices. We still record. We used to go out with a Sony Walkman. Now we have MP3 files. It's still music. We still get it. And so there are things that will change, but if we remain right there centered in the proper identity. We're not just a doctor, a lawyer, a farmer. We are also something else, and we all have this mission. Why do we come here on earth? It's just to get a lot of money. It must be something else. And so
Must be something.
I think it's about helping others as well, isn't it? That's what we do in a job. If you're a baker, you're helping people. If you're a cleaner, you're helping people. If you're a CEO, you can help people. All depends on mindset. Look at Tony Robbins. You know, they were
Mhm.
hungry. They didn't have money, and they had, he had four fathers. He could have complained, about lots of stuff, and then he started to say, "Hey, this is about growth. My mindset has to change." And his mission is to help everyone. And how many million of dollars he donates now every year so that people can have food? And before he was the one that didn't have food, so he understands that. And like him, he started from nothing. I'm not saying we can all be Tony Robbins, no, but we can do something to improve the world. And people who solve problems are the people who are going to find jobs. So
Mhm. I
important
agree.
thing.
I agree. I agree, and I couldn't have said it better. We are here to use our lives and our experience to create a better world. And I know that that can sound very hokey or like, aspirational, but it's true.
Good.
It is just truth.
Yeah. If you just live for yourself and to have a yacht and a big house on the ocean in Florida and just waste your money, what kind of life is that? I mean, honestly, we need a lot better in our life, and it's when we give that we feel better.
We do. We do. And there's so many people that are very high achieving, right? And they still feel empty inside. And one of the things that I really enjoy about the work that I do with Heart Goals is in teaching it to organizations and people is it takes the focus off of money and it puts the focus on you as a person, your total well-being, right? Mind, body, and spirit. Who are you and what do you really want?
Yeah.
Outside of what do you want to earn?
Yeah.
What do
My
you
money.
want?
Money is
Right.
a consequence. right?
Money is a consequence, but what do you want to do? What do you want to be remembered for? What excites you? What energizes you? And all of these are the things that we need to think about because life is more than just what we earn. It's about
Right.
the experiences and the impact that we have in the world.
Life is more than just what we earn. I like that. It's a big title. Should have a t-shirt.
Yes. A t-shirt. Life is more than what we earn. I like that.
Yoo-hoo, we got a quote. You're gonna be quoted, Charlene. We're gonna have t-shirts, but Charlene Ridley t-shirts.
I love that. I love it.
Yeah,
This
you
is a
can have it.
really great conversation. Thank you.
You're very welcome. And thank you so much for being here, for giving us these vital tools right now when we really need them so that we, instead of thinking in desperation, we can have an action plan. And also, people can reach you. There is a website, charleneridley.com. And I don't know if there is a book coming in the pipeline, but there are lots of ideas there. There is coaching and consultancy for people and organization. You can always address those with Charlene if you want a one-to-one or group session. Find out a little bit more, and I think that's a good time to invest a little bit in yourself and say, hey, I can do this. Let's embrace 2026 with a great mindset. So thank you again.
Thank you.
And guys, please share, subscribe, and take action. And remember that you have all the tools to create the life that you want. See you all next week. Bye bye.